Or what? I was late and y'all like, this, y'all. All right, let's see who's coming on here. What's going on? What's going on? Hey, y'all. I know I'm late. I know I'm late. Just a couple of minutes. Good morning, Lycheens. Do I say your name correctly? Do I pronounce your handle correctly? And I would love to know a little bit more where it comes from. Good morning, Love Light Ananda, Chickpea Sarni. Well, good morning. Welcome, y'all. Thank you for the 400 likes, Lycheens. So first, I want to ask you guys. I'm in Detroit again, and I'm using the same equipment that I was using when I had very bad sound. I had incredibly bad sound, probably the worst sound of any live stream to date. And so I just want to check in with y'all. Oh, you like the beard and beanie? Okay, well, thank you. It's called. Usually, what's really funny is I get to Detroit and it's like I become a kind of. I don't want to say a hermit because I get busy and I'm like running around. I have a board meeting today, and then that's followed by there's a group that's trying to organize an eco village here in Detroit. So I'm doing some meeting with the folks with the cooperation group, and that's a group that does cooperative development here in Detroit. And then I'm also meeting with this group to discuss the development of some eco villages here in Detroit. So like I'm not a hermit, but for some reason being in this house makes me feel hermity. I don't know. I feel like the craggedy old guy who comes out and is like, "Hey, you kids, get off my lawn." I feel so. This beard goes with that. I guess I could just take the compliment and say, "Thank you," but y'all know me. So yeah, that's what's going on. It's like the plant things that grow on rocks create soil. Let's see. Wait, hold on. It's like the plant things that grow on rocks and create soil. My beard is like the plant things that grow on rocks and create soil. I'll take it. I'll take it. So, oh, okay. Your name is like the plant things that grow on rocks and create soil. Well, I'm a big fan of things that create soil. I try to create my fair share of soil. Speaking of create soil, hey Kearney B, welcome. Good morning. So, I just want to let everybody know that today is likely going to be a little bit of a short live stream because I have so much to do. I have immediately to go after the live stream. I have to get out to Highland Park, as I said before, for a meeting of the board of the cooperation group. And then I'm also going to be meeting with this group of folks who are trying to, again, organize an eco village. And I really have my fingers crossed that they pick this area. Folks who know the area know that it actually would be kind of perfect. It's very wide open. There's a lot of vacant, like open lots around here. So for a group that was trying to develop an eco village, and even the lots that aren't vacant, a lot of the buildings are vacant. So, um, yeah, Kearney, I assumed we weren't friends anymore. What'd you bring me? I hope you were on vacation somewhere. What you got for me, Kearney? You gonna hop on? The least you could do for not being present that much is hop on. But actually, you were probably one of the most recent people. I think we did talk recently. I don't know. Heard you got a mention from Voldemort Cheetah. Don't know where though. Why are you gonna bring that? Why are you bringing that in? Why are you bringing that in here? You picked that up. What you just dropped right in the middle of the floor, naming names that shouldn't be named in my house. Pick it up. Yes, you. Pick it up. Carry it out. Now somebody get some Febreze, y'all. Get some Febreze. We're not talking about that. Okay, I'm gonna put it this way. I love that my name has been mentioned. I don't know why my name would be mentioned. I don't know why shots were fired. I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. Y'all know I've been minding my business. Y'all, I'm so sorry. I've barely made a video, and I want to apologize for that. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I was just, it's not that I'm not like, I want to be connected to all of you, but I'm like diving in. So you know that I've been raving about this book, Collective Courage. And the subtitle you can see, it's a history of African American cooperative economic thought and practice by Jessica Gordon Nemhart. And so I read this book. I'm now on my third reading in a month. I'm just addicted to this book. It just occurred to me that the contents of this book would make an incredible play. And it's mostly because people don't know. It's one of those hidden figures things, right? When you see, I don't know if people saw the film Hidden Figures. It's one of those things where you didn't realize the amount of the participation that African Americans had since, slavery in terms of the development of cooperative businesses. Good morning, Vegan Call Quest. Welcome to the live stream. And I don't know, I want to ask you, Vegan Call Quest, what do you know about the history of Black cooperative development? And do they do co-ops in Canada where you are? I know that several of the I know I actually have been, I'm immersed, y'all. Just been digging, and it's gonna be like last year when I was working on Ready Set Go Race, and all of a sudden I was walking around like an encyclopedia of the development of race in the United States. And it kind of feels good because I don't think of myself so much as an intellectual. I think of myself as an artist. But then I end up doing all this research on these projects, and I was like, now I'm an expert. Well, I'm not really an expert, but I know a lot. But interestingly, um, a lot of the people who were doing cooperative development, African American people who were doing cooperative development throughout the 20th century, went to Canada, and I'm not exactly sure of the place, but apparently there's a place in Canada that was a hotbed for cooperative development. Canada is only a little under 3% black, so we don't really have much community where I'm from. You better make some. You better make some community. You better go find Vegan Gains and make you some community, damn it. I said it. I said it. So, well, all that to say, I'm all in the world of cooperative development, and like the fact that African Americans were so involved in it. And I was lucky. I got to talk to Jessica Gordon. I got to talk to the person who wrote this book last week about the project. So what happened, certainly I'm working on this project, and I don't want to just jump in and start saying, hey, I'm doing this project based on Jessica Gordon Nemhart's book and not have a conversation with Jessica Gordon Nemhart. So I got on the phone with Jessica last Thursday, and we talked for, I want to say, if I could look on my phone, I could tell you exactly how long we talked. But I would say it was somewhere between a half an hour and 45 minutes. Feels like it was more like 45 minutes. And just talked about the things that she was excited about the project, about the way that the approach that we're taking to staging her book. It is for sure happening. The play will be staged over Memorial Day weekend. So yeah, thank you for the 50 likes, Vegan Call Quest. So yeah, so the working title of the piece now is The Black Conference. I can talk about all of these things now. The Black Conference is going to be staged in Brooklyn, same location that we did Ready, Set, Go Race. It'll be there for a weekend, and then knocking wood, we haven't even put out the request for proposals, but you all know that I'm also one of the organizers for the 23rd now Pedagogy and Theater of the Oppressed Conference. Last year, I was the lead organizer for the 22nd Pedagogy and Theater of the Oppressed Conference. Your boy is working. Your boy is all over. I'm international. So anyway, so I'm working on that conference right now. We haven't announced the request for the call for proposals. So we're going to be asking for people to make proposals for presentations, and hoping that, all of the presentations and people will be, presenting papers and things like that. And I'm hoping that to bring this piece to the conference. So I have to apply like everyone else. I don't get special consideration, except that I do. Probably because they like me. I probably wouldn't be on the board if they didn't like the work that I did. So that's neither here nor there. Vegan Call Quest says, Vegan Call Quest realizes he's black. Did I let out a family secret? I'm sorry about that. Let me see. Let's see. Maybe I'm a little ignorant on this here, but I've never really got the feeling of imminent racial tensions where I'm from. Well, Kearney, it's interesting because you're from Quebec. Yes. And Vegan Call Quest, I'm not sure, where is Vancouver? What part? I think you're in the more like, I think one of you is from the east and the other is from the west. And, I think that Montreal is much more Francophile, and I don't know if the same is true of where. So, yeah, so maybe I'll need to, I wish could we have two guests? Can we have like dueling dueling Canadians on the show today? No, I don't want to talk about all of you that way. Anyway, so I only brought up the subject of Canada because I was interested in what you all know about cooperative development, because I'm likely going to be doing a tour of the places that are mentioned in the book. And I believe Montreal was one of the places, because apparently Marcus Garvey, who I was hoping to treat as a character in this play, but Marcus Garvey is a hugely controversial figure who was part of the Back to Africa movement, So I don't know if people know about that. So, but I was interested in having Marcus Garvey appear so that we'd have somebody representing the Back to Africa movement, which was another strategy for lifting African Americans out of poverty after slavery. Because I don't know if people realize that, but after slavery, all the people who had been enslaved, who then got released, they were poor. They didn't like go home. They didn't go home to their families who were, living in freedom somewhere while they were busy. It wasn't like getting released from prison where you can then go home to your whole support network of people who weren't in prison. No, when people got released from slavery, there was nothing. They had nothing. They got released from slavery, and like they didn't even have the right to walk on the road. They made it very quickly after slavery. They made it illegal to be caught walking on the road if you were black. Well, if you were anyone, there were vagrancy laws and things like that. And if you were caught walking on the road, they could arrest you. But of course, the way that the law was practiced, it was, the African Americans, because I don't know if you guys remember, but Amendment 13 has that little clause that if someone has been convicted of a crime, they can be enslaved. And so basically they created these crimes that oddly fit the predicament that African Americans were in. They had no jobs. If you had no job, you could be arrested. Yeah, if you were a vagrant, you could be arrested. If you didn't have an address, if you couldn't say where you lived. And so, of course, people released, and so you either had to stay on the plantation and keep working for the person who used to own you, and now you just worked for them for basically free, whatever. So this is a lot of stuff. We still can't walk on the road. Love Light Ananda, you better work. Still can't walk on the roads. Well, what is the one crime they used to say? I don't know if they still say it, driving while black. Okay, so Love Light Ananda says Richard is in the sunken place. I'm not sure what that means. I have not been following anybody, y'all. I've not been following anyone. So I have no idea what's going on with people. I hope everyone's well, though. So anyway, as I was saying, Collective Courage, got to sit down with Jessica Gordon Nemhard, talking about the play. Dates for the play have been announced. So whatever that Memorial Day weekend, I believe Memorial Day is Monday, the 28th of May this year. And so we'll be presenting the play going back. So it's the 28th, 27th, 26th, 25th, 24th. So we're from the 24th of May through the 28th. And then we're going to the idea is to take the play on tour. So then we're going to go to take it around to conferences. The idea is the Black Conference, and the Black Conference, it's an environmental piece. You'll go to a conference, and it'll be the opening ceremonies of the conference and the opening plenary of this conference. However, the conference is being attended by people like Zora Neale Hurston and Richard Wright and W.E.B. Du Bois and Ella Baker and Bayard Rustin and A. Philip Randolph, and on and on and on. All you like it's like an all-star cast from Black history, right? From a certain period of Black history, the dawn of the Civil Rights Movement, or what became the Civil Rights Movement. And if people don't know who A. Philip Randolph was, A. Philip Randolph was the organizer of the March on Washington. People know Martin Luther King as the person who delivered the "I Have a Dream" speech at the March on Washington. In fact, it was the last speech that was delivered at the March on Washington. And apparently, the "I Have a Dream" speech was not the speech that King had planned for the March on Washington. Martin Luther King had given the "I Have a Dream" speech at the March on Woodward, which was in Detroit, right here in the city where I am. That was the first time that Martin Luther King had given the "I Have a Dream" speech. And apparently, rumor, check it out for yourselves, don't just believe me. Apparently, Martin Luther King got up and started to say whatever words he was going to say at the march, and somebody called out, "Tell him about the dream, Malcolm," because they wanted to hear that speech that he had given in Detroit. And so Martin Luther King went into the "I Have a Dream" speech, which he had given in Detroit, and it became, one of the most famous speeches in the history of the world. So, in Quebec last year, a YT shooter opened fire on a mosque and killed. Vegan Call Quest. I think I'm aware of the story that you're talking about. Last year, when the shooter opened fire on the mosque, and it was interesting because people immediately tried to say that it was a, that it was a. Well, they said it was a terrorist act, but they were saying that it was a Muslim assailant. Yeah, all this kind of thing, and this continues here, right, in the United States. It was censoring your comments. You see how YouTube, how YouNow. Although last week you got on here, Vegan Call Quest, and it was like just at the point where I was kind of slowing things down, but I stayed on, and I was really hoping that you would get on. But I do want to say that I do hope that you'll guest on the channel again. Not today necessarily, but today would be great. But I really love talking to you, man, and I would love to have a chance to have a conversation with you. And I know that I'm likely going to have to just jump on one of your live streams, which I'm going to do soon. I'm going to try to do it next week. Y'all, I have next week off, so I promise that I'm going to make at least one video. Last week I made no videos. It felt so good to not make any videos. But thanks for becoming fans. V for Vendetta. Taco Bell Munchie. It's their first time on YouNow. I love that YouNow is like prompts you to do things and to say things. I'm all about the transparency, y'all. YouNow made me do it. Whatever it is that I'm doing, YouNow is making me do it. But welcome, and thank you so much for the likes. Yeah, this is the time for rest and renewal, right? Yes. Yes, thank you, Love Light Ananda. I really appreciate that. So today I was going to talk a little bit about, is that the shadow from Trump behind me? Y'all, this image, that is me from 1998. Yes, that is me. That is pre-vegan Reggie. And what's interesting is that the friend of mine, Edie Nadelhath, painted this portrait. We were at Coney Island, and she decided that she wanted to do a portrait of me. She doesn't do that many portraits, so I was truly honored that she did a portrait of me. And yeah, so it's my shadow, it's my silhouette basically. It's a shadow, it's a silhouette of me from a long time ago, right? We can tell that story another time. But Edie is coming. Edie is going to be here, and we're bringing more of Edie's work. And in honor of Edie's work coming to the house, Edie is going to come with me, going to help me install the work. It's all paintings of cows that were cows living in an animal sanctuary. And so Edie did portraits of cows from an animal sanctuary. And I thought, what better place for portraits of cows from an animal sanctuary to find a home other than like locked away in a closet in storage than here at AltSpace. And so hopefully there'll be a lot of conversations about why are there pictures, why are there paintings of cows? And so when the work gets here, I'll definitely be making a video, definitely be talking about the installation of paintings, be talking to Edie about the paintings and why she painted them, why she chose to do the paintings of the cows, and to kind of help raise awareness about veganism and about AltSpace. Edie is going to be doing some limited edition prints from the paintings. The paintings are huge, as big as this thing behind me. That is easily 5 feet by 5 feet. It's a huge. It's big. It's a big canvas. But Edie is going to be doing some limited edition prints, and there will likely be some kind of a fundraiser where this, you can get a limited edition print for a certain type of donation. So yeah, that's what's going on. A lot of talk about cooperatives. A lot of really, really, really cool things are happening. There is a citywide initiative to bring solar energy to communities in a democratic way. There's also an initiative to do, and these are things that are kind of being piloted in this community as well. So there's going to be bringing solar energy, and I'm going to try to see if I can offer some of the land here at AltSpace to, to keep some of the units if they would like to. But the idea is that they're going to be used to power the whole neighborhood. So hoping for that. There is a initiative to get internet access for everyone that Tawana Petty, who all of you have met on, if you follow my YouTube channel, you've likely met Tawana Petty, also known as Honeycomb the Poet, who was also one of the organizers on the Pedagogy and Theater of the Oppressed conference. So cool things. Cool things. Yeah. I'm very excited about it. It's snowing here in Detroit right now. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if anyone else has had their first snow, but it is definitely snowing here in Detroit. What else? So I wanted to touch base with all of you. So I keep starting to talk about Jessica Gordon Nembhard. I will say this, the highlights from my conversation with Jessica Gordon Nembhard, we talked a lot about the concept and whether it was plausible, who would be organizing such a conference. And it just turns out that so many things were on the nose. The fact that there was a particular figure, George Schuyler, who was interested in having as part of the piece. And I've been thinking about George Schuyler. If people don't know George Schuyler, go look up George Schuyler. So there's a tradition, and I've talked about this, the tradition of the Black conservative. So this is where this comes from. This is how this ties back to conversations we've been having. George Schuyler was, first of all, before the 50s, it was about 50-50 that you would be a Republican as a Democrat. However, being a Republican did not automatically translate into being conservative, because there were many African Americans who were Republicans who were part of the civil rights movement, and they were all about change, and they were all about providing assistance to Black people, because we're talking about it's not a century. It wasn't 100 years after slavery. You had people who had been enslaved, and certainly many people who were born whose parents had been slaves, who were living and activists, but they were Republicans, obviously, because for one reason, because Abraham Lincoln was, a Republican, right? And probably a very different Republican Party, right? Probably a very different flavor of Republicans. So you had a lot of conservatives, you had a lot of black people who were Republican, but not necessarily conservatives. And these includes like Zora Neale Hurston, I think was Republican, Ida B. Wells, Republican, right? And we could probably go through the list and find a lot of Republicans. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that W.E.B. Du Bois was a Republican, but I can look out and verify those things, and I certainly will have all that information before the play opens. But George Schuyler was one of the early notorious black conservatives. And Jessica and I were, talking about why this person who was very well known in terms of the work that they did for the improvement of black people. And they started the Young Negro Cooperative Association. I believe that's the name of it. And there was a call to young people, specifically young black people, to be doing cooperative development, to be learning about cooperatives. That organization was founded, I believe, with Ella Baker, who is also a famous civil rights organizer, did a lot of organizing in the South, was one of the early, if not a founder, but one of the early leaders in SNCC. So we're talking, was associated with people who were extremely radical in terms of their participation in civil rights and what they wanted to see for black people in this country. And so George Schuyler, however, does like a 180 and becomes this staunch conservative that was very critical of other black leaderships, became very critical of W.E.B. Du Bois, became very critical of a lot of the other leaders in the black civil rights movement. And so trying to figure out what that was about is going to be part of the fun in creating this play, because the play is going to take place after the transition to conservatism. Another really great thing about George Schuyler, and I don't have a copy of the book because I only have it on my phone. I got it as a PDF, but I will be getting a copy of it because I just want to be able to show you all the cover of a book called Black No More. Black No More is a book by George Schuyler. I believe it was written in the early 1930s, and the book treats the discovery of a cure for blackness. So a black scientist discovers how to turn black people white. And that is how the book starts. That is how the book starts. And it's really hilarious. And yes, Love Light Ananda, yes, there was a book. And this is all stuff that's being written like when it was taboo. A thing about George Schuyler that I want to mention, and I have to verify whether some of this is true because I'm just getting into the research, but this is why I haven't been making videos, y'all, because I'm deep in it. George Schuyler, one of his solutions to the race situation in America was miscegenation. So George Schuyler thought that the way to, deal with race was intentionally for black people to go out and get married to white people and basically, have everybody be mixed, which I don't think it's not like on his face, it's not a horrible thing. I'm like not horrified that black people get married to white people, but that, I mean, like that's not what you would, first of all, in the South, it probably didn't fly. It probably didn't fly very well because just for like looking at a white woman, a black man would be lynched, right? Would be lynched. And so he's talking about this when you could get into a lot of trouble for talking about or anything that in any way would compromise the honor of a white woman. And so George Schuyler he had some pretty out there ideas. So for George Schuyler to then become this conservative and be very critical of the civil rights movement, like he was critical of the civil rights movement, like it shouldn't happen. He was critical of the passing of the Civil Rights Act. He thought, and here I kind of agree with him. He understood that you cannot legislate morality. You cannot legislate people's feelings. You cannot legislate love. And his thinking was that if people hated black people, there was no law in the world that you were going to pass that could stop people from hating black people. He believed that this was something that was just going to have to happen naturally. And I agree to some extent that you cannot legislate people's emotions. You cannot legislate morality. Although there are many people who don't say, for example, smoke marijuana because it's illegal, but that's a whole other story. The problem that I have is that it lacks the fuller analysis that the attitudes about black people were legislated. Initially, there were laws that were passed that kept white people from interacting with black people. So it seems to me that some of the some part of the solution to the race problem is the first thing you have to do is go and undo all of those laws. And that is what the civil rights movement was about. It wasn't, so one might say today that there aren't laws on the books, at least not directly, that condone racism, that make it it's illegal to discriminate against people based on the color of their skin and various other ways, right? But it doesn't stop those things from happening. And most of the time, how can you know? How can you know what's in somebody's heart when they make a decision not to hire someone, right? So I agreed with George Schuyler to an extent, but to another extent, because what was created was created as a system. It was structured. It was constructed. And because it's been constructed, and now we're living within that construct, a way to deal with it is to deconstruct it, intentionally deconstruct it, or construct something new, right? Construct something new for people to exist within, right? So Poop Smear says, let's see what people are saying. We had our first snow in September, says Love Light Ananda. Kearney, snow there too. What's going on? Love Light Ananda says sorcery. No, it's not sorcery. It was apparently in the book it's science. It has something to do with like inducing vitiligo. Basically, it's like it was like an induced vitiligo or something along those lines, which is a real disease, which is a real condition. I don't know if they consider it a disease or a condition, but vitiligo, I believe, is a condition where people lose the pigmentation in their skin. And so it was a kind of induced and sped up process of vitiligo. So Poopsmare says, that is stupid. Don't buy into that liberal agenda. I don't know what you're talking about. Be specific, Poopsmare, because I want to know what to respond. I want to be able to respond to your I want to be able to respond to your comment to see what you're referring to. Anyway, so this idea. One of the things that I really enjoy is that I think that there's an assumption, from conservatives that there's an automatic like suspicion or somehow like a knee-jerk reaction from people of color when they learn that somebody who is black is a Republican. And I don't know, you know what I mean? It's like, what to assume that black people don't make the assumption that they are represented by the spectrum. Now, there are certain parts of the world where whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, sometimes those are drawn along racial lines in some parts of the country, at least in the United States. But it's not true everywhere. In like metropolitan areas, you see people, all over the political spectrum, all over the diversity, based on their diversity, like whatever you want to call diversity, but you have all kinds of people mixed up together who are all kinds of things. So, when these folks get on and they're like, I told my black friends that I was Republican and they all hate me now. No, probably not true. Because, I've had Republican friends my entire life, people that I'm close to, that I love. There are Republicans in my life that I love. So it's not as simple as being Republican or not. And there are people that I know and care for dearly who are more conservative, right? They're not, reactionaries or anything, but they're more conservative. And I understand that and I appreciate that. And it's really a question of like, are the things that they believe in, that they embrace as conservatives, are those things based on, facts, or are those things based on, ideologies like, the meritocracy myth, or are they based on the free market myth, or the, supply demand myth, right? These are all things that end up being manipulated by people who control the resources and the distribution of them, which is why you can have diamonds, which are not a very rare gem, being worth what they're worth, because you can have the Beers company manipulating the distribution, right, of those things. So, all that to say, it is going to be really interesting to learn about early black conservatism and to compare things that were said by early black conservatives who sometimes were engaged still in civil rights activities, regardless of the fact that they were conservative, and what is said today by conservatives, which often, like Red Pill Black, for example, who's not like the most famous of the conservatives. There are so many other conservatives that you will all know and we'll be able to discuss more deeply. But is there a connection to the history of early black conservatism as opposed to black republicanism, which is different, and the black conservatism that exists today? So I don't know. What do y'all think? What do y'all think? Is it worth it to go into, to learn a little bit more about? Now, I keep promising all the things that I said I was going to do. Those things are coming, but everything is on. Once I get into production mode, once I start writing, all those things, everything else has to go on hold, y'all. You have to understand that. Everything else has to go on hold. And so, yeah, so writing a new piece, or at least conceiving of a new piece, it will likely be, devised by the company. And then also, I've been working with folks from the co-op movement, and obviously it's an international movement, because you have folks from, Mondragon in Spain, which is the biggest, I believe, the biggest cooperative business in the world. Look it up, Mondragon, Spain. I believe it's Mondragon. Look them up. But I'm also going to be talking to people from the co-op, the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives. There's the Democracy at Work Institute that I happen to have a friend who's working there, so I've been having some conversations with those folks. There's the New York City Network of Worker Cooperatives, and I've been talking to some folks from there. In my neighborhood in Sunset Park, there's the Center for Family Life that's been developing co-ops now for, I believe, going on 12 years. I think they had their 10th anniversary while I was still working there, but going now on 12 years. And so I'm going to be talking to those folks. We're going to be working with, reaching out to folks at the I believe it's the Urban Law Center, the Urban Justice Center, that does a lot of work with cooperatives, and obviously, Jessica Gordon-Emhart. So there's going to be a whole lot of folks from the world of cooperatives that are going to be swirling around the development of this play about cooperatives. And there's a kind of a myth that black people traditionally have not been a part of the cooperative movement. And so this play sets out to kind of dispel a lot of those myths. And you'll hear from the mouths of people who were part of, the black movement leadership, specifically in the 20s and 30s, talking about cooperative development and the campaigns to get black people doing co-op works. And a lot of people did. There were a lot of co-ops. And so I'm going to feature some of those co-ops on the channel and tell you it's going to be kind of like a little story time, because I'm going to tell you the stories of how the co-ops came about, how they were formed, and the adversity that they faced, not just as a business, but as a black-owned business during the time of like Jim Crow South, right? And so, suddenly, when it's one thing to have your competition, be mad at you and try to like underprice you. It's another thing to have your competition drag you out and lynch you. And some of that happened. There was a lot of people being reported to the federal agencies, people investigated by the FBI just for owning their own business, right? And they, suspected of fraudulence because the business would be doing well. And it was like, why? How are those black people over there having a successful business? Somebody must be doing something crooked, because they all crooks. So all that kind of stuff. So yeah, y'all, that is what is going to be going on. To look for. Those are things to look for. I'm going to try to get some videos out next week. I'm going to try to get some videos out next week, but I can't promise. I'm not going to promise anything. But I do have the week off. But sometimes that's worse because then it's like I can really sit down and write. And I'll sit down at 6 o'clock in the morning and start writing, and I will look up and it will be 6 o'clock in the evening, and Chris will be walking in the door and asking me if the dog has been walked. And I'll be like, he's been sleeping in that box. He seems comfortable to me. I don't know. Anyway. So that's kind of what we have to look forward. Obviously, I'm going to keep the live streams going so that we might go through a phase where this is my only engagement with all of you. And that's cool too. I don't mind it. Oh, another great thing. I met with Joanne King, Mrs. King, who was, the convertible. Joanne is I'm working on trying to get Joanne to become vegan. And Joanne is truly the representative of typical, like, what? Vegan is what? Who are vegans? I don't know what, but, had their doctor strongly recommend that they go vegan, and so we've been working together. But Joanne has completely transformed. So next month when I'm back in Detroit, we're going to start back up with our regular meetings with Joanne King on the channel. It's going to be continued as part of the Convertible series, but I'm going to let y'all know it has been a struggle. It has been a struggle because one of Mrs. King's doctors forbade that she eat fruit, which is like, how is a vegan going to live without fruit? So that's a whole other thing. We'll talk about that stuff when later on. But like I told you guys, this is going to have to be a short one. But I've enjoyed being here with all of you and just giving you an update on what's been going on and what continues to go on. Highly recommending Collective Courage, A History of African American Cooperative Economic Thought. It's by Penn State University Press and is available through Penn State University Press. I will include a link in the description box when this is posted on YouTube, because there are some ways that you can get this through, I believe, the Grassroots Economic Organization, Grassroots Economics something. It's GEO, but through their website. It's a website that I think one of my favorite economists, Richard Wolff, is a part of supporting or organizing, but not sure. Anyway, stuff to look for. We are going to be doing our study sessions with Pedagogy of the Oppressed, so I hope that people have been looking at it. Holly Glenn says, I got it on Kindle last week. Okay, I think you're talking about Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Yes, so do start reading it. We are going to be jumping in after the new year, because I know it's just very difficult for people to get things cooking in these last months of the year. There's all these kind of holidays and family things, but now is the time. Read it. You have until January 1st to read it, and then we're kicking off the series. We're going to kick off the learning group, and we're going to be discussing one of the chapters a week during the session, and the sessions may go real long for that. So I'm going to be trying to make room for those sessions to really linger, so that everybody will get a chance to offer their thoughts on what's being encountered in the chapters. So if you have not gotten your hands on a copy of Pedagogy of the Oppressed, I don't have one right in front of me. I usually have one like ready to go right there, but I'm not in Brooklyn. I'm here. But I do have my copy here, but it's over there. But this is time. No more Constitution videos. Yes, we are getting Constitution videos. I'm continuing with the Constitution series. They're ready to go. Once I'm ready to roll them out, they're gonna roll out. I actually have some stuff that's already in the can that I just need to put up on, but I just really haven't been able to. I haven't been able to sit down at the computer and script, which is a big part of them. Is like taking all of the information, like reading through it, trying to understand it, and then trying to distill it down in a way that is like a fair interpretation of what I'm reading. So yeah, So we are definitely going to be picking up with the Constitution videos. When we pick up, we're going to be picking up with Article 2. I believe we finished Article 1, which has to do with the setting up of the legislative branch. And so we're going to be picking up with Article 2, which is just in time because all this stuff is swirling around about impeachment. And I don't know if people even really understand what impeachment means. And I think we're going to be discussing some of that when we discuss Article 2 of the Constitution. So look for those things. Those things are to come. But like I said, things are going to slow down through I'm going to tell you now, things are going to slow down through the holidays. But then I'll be back here in Detroit and I won't be teaching classes and I won't be doing all this. I have all those other things going on. So yes, thank you for asking. Love, light, Ananda. That said, I've enjoyed this little sliver of time with you, this little tiny 45 minutes that we've had together for me to just rattle off all the things that are happening in the world around me, directly around me. Now, you know, bigger things happening in other places. There are lots of developments in Southeast Asia of democracy being undermined. If you're willing to guest me without a camera, I could sometimes. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, it won't be today because today I have to get out of here and head to this board meeting. But let's look for that. If you can drag yourself to the next live stream, let's just plan for that to happen next week. Joey Jeremiah, you are very welcome. Thank you so much, and much love back to you, Vegan Call Quest. Much love to all of you for joining for another day. Everyone, yes, Lycheans, you have a great day too. And I'll see you all next week. That's it for this video. Those of you watching on YouTube, like this video if you like it. Share, comment, subscribe. This is Reg signing off. Love yourselves. Peace.